What's up, everybody? We're back. It's your boy, Snakeskin94. I know the video just started, but if you're enjoying the video, all 10 seconds of it, don't forget to smash that like button, and hit that notification bell. Subscribe to my Patreon. Like me on Tumblr. Follow my Discord, and send me pictures over Google Drive.
Well then,
solid.
Yes. So it's been a while, but we're back, and we have someone amazing joining us for this.
Shucks.
You've seen him in such movies as Star Wars: The Force Awakens and Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and
as well as Lego Star Wars on the PS4.
I'll say the lightsaber is right there. It's right there.
Yo, that's the same one I got. I got the mask somewhere around here too.
It's in my closet. I can pull it out if you need at some point.
Yeah. Who knew that Adam Driver was a brony? This is amazing.
I know, right?
But yes, this is our buddy Jensen. He's going to join us on this.
Yeah,
and
that's Jensen. That's John. I'm Snakeskin. This is my breakfast, even though it's noon. So let's get into it. And then we need like that.
Let's just jump into it.
Yeah, dude. What's happening, Forum? Let's go.
Okay, I think that covers. I think that covers the basis as far as intros. Good job, everybody.
I think you're right.
You did a full Ray William Johnson. I can't believe it.
All right, guys, that's the whole video. Like, subscribe if you like our videos. Make sure to follow us on Instagram.
I got to use my channel to pull ass.
We straight doing your mom. Okay, so yeah, Chrysalis is back. What's up with that? I'm gonna eat some cereal.
Okay, well, so I think as we established before we started recording, I think we've got we've got a great dynamic here. We've got John with the sort of I didn't care for it, me with the I definitely cared for it, and Eddie with a sort of in between view on it. So let's start.
I'm the objective one here.
Okay, sure. So how about we start
in the middle? Sorry, I meant to say in the middle. In the middle.
Since Eddie is a little bit busy with. Yeah. Let's start with
Reese's Puffs. Eat them up. Eat them up. Eat them up.
Let's start with John. Get his opinion. We'll flip to mine, and then I think after that we can head to Eddie and kind of get his in between views. So let's start with the two more extremes. So go ahead, John. Give us your thoughts.
Okay. So this, I'm going to say it in the vein of. Do you guys remember? The Equestria Games episode where everyone was thinking we're going to get the Equestria Games and we're going to be able to have some amazing looking at what they do for the Olympics here, and then it turned out to be a Spike episode and people were just massively disappointed.
Oh yeah, I remember the forums.
At that point, I was able to understand that we probably weren't going to be getting the actual Equestria Games. We were just going to get a Spike episode, and I was fine with that, even though some of those were borderline horrifically cringy. Oh gosh, I still can't get past trying to listen to the entire Canterlot theme.
I mean, Celine Dion it is not, but Grammy worthy I think it is.
Yeah. So, and with that was because I knew that they weren't going to be able to really do that kind of episode unless it was kind of like a split part. However, with this one, looking at Chrysalis from the beginning, we had an awesome episode, the best season finale we had in the show so far.
Yes.
Then we get 4 seasons without it. I know myself and Snakeskin kept saying we need to go to the Badlands to see Chrysalis. And we finally get to do that in the season 6 finale, and it's even better than Canterlot Wedding.
It was everything we ever wanted.
And then we have this. Just saying.
Well, so me and the other guys were kind of discussing this before we started the review. So I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I quite enjoyed the episode. Now. The difference that I had between Equestria Games and then this, with the sort of like anticlimax that both of these sort of were, is the difference between but the difference between the two of those is that you had Equestria Games, you had the entire season sort of building up to this this sort of thing, and then it turns out, okay, we're just getting a Spike episode this entire time. Now, objectively, Equestria Games is a very fine Spike episode. I think it's one of the few like of the better Spike episodes, which of course have this sort of this reputation about just sort of universally being underwhelming at best.
I'll agree.
But I don't necessarily think Equestria Games was the best episode. It wasn't even the best Spike episode. It wasn't the worst. But the difference here is that with the Mean Sixth, this is only the half-season finale. This is the build-up to the actual season finale itself. I was telling the guys that basically the difference that I see between something like on the topic of Equestria Games, the difference between that and the Spike episode, like Just for Sidekicks, and then the corresponding episode of Games Ponies Play, is that there we saw both sides of the story, and actually were both made more interesting by seeing the sort of backstory that went into each one of them. It's like, okay, we see here's what the main six are up to, here's what Spike was up to in the background. We see, wait, we see in Games Ponies Play, wait, what's going on with Spike? And then you get, of course, to see that story. I think Equestria Games would have been more interesting if it was told like that. Both the Spike backstory and the main stage story of the Equestria Games would have been made more interesting by having those corresponding episodes. But without getting too into the weeds on the episode that we're not discussing, the difference there is that with this anticlimax, while it is sort of this build-up that we've had, with knowing the episode synopsis and things like that, if you look at it from my perspective, which is of someone who doesn't look at the episode synopses ahead of time, just because I like to be surprised. This is the first that I've heard that Chrysalis was coming back. I mean, I had heard rumors, I had heard people in, like here in group chats or here and there saying that Chrysalis was going to come back, but this is my first time actually seeing her on screen. So this episode, as the sort of mid-season finale and like anti-climax of being, oh, Chrysalis is coming back, turns out it's just in a slice of life, is a great build-up for this finale. We're seeing this villain who is, this recurring villain who I think is kind of just universally adored, having this sort of very sort of just like comedic mishap episode is, I think, a really fun sort of it's a really fun way to do a mid-season finale. You're just going to get this comedy episode that's like, okay, this is kind of funny and also sort of interesting. And then, of course, when the actual finale comes around, we're going to get to have that anticipation pay off.
Well, you were mentioning that you didn't see anything. You kind of heard whispers, but you didn't really know
Correct.
What was actually going on. I think that's part of why it was so difficult for me, was because Eddie and I watched the animatic of this.
Right.
Correct.
And so that's where it kind of got our excitement going, because we saw the intro scene where she grabs the hairs and then she reveals that she's Chrysalis. That's probably where it happened. Where that's where it got me excited, and then when I actually got the episode, it's like, what's this shit?
And see, that almost gets into this whole discussion of meta, of it's like, should that be, that gets into the discussion of whether the episode is objectively good or bad, and kind of just how it's perceived. That's kind of the whole definition of meta, is did the creators really intend to do that? Because that's what we've been having with this entire season, is these leaks, these episodes being released early in these like weird, like half-finished forms. Is it kind of degrades the show's quality because it's not being told in the way that it's meant to be told. This is why I try to never watch leaks, because I think that's
there's been
it was meant to be watched. And like I said, it can greatly twist the way that the episode actually is perceived in the viewer, like with you, John, which again is not your fault or anything like that, because those animatics were out there just for anybody to see. I deliberately avoid them, but if you're not deliberately making an effort to not see those, it can be very easy, if you're like following Equestria Daily or any Pony News Facebook pages, to just come across those spoilers. And that enters, like I said, into this whole thing of the show meta and how it's perceived versus how the story was originally meant to be told. So for like John, for you, and Eddie, for you as well, for you guys as people who saw the teasers, the animatics beforehand, and me who didn't, I come out with a completely different impression of the episode.
You also have to figure too, when we saw the animatics, we saw them from someone's phone that was ripped right to YouTube. Those were shown at a con. Or several cons. So we didn't really have context, not of the scene, not just of the scene, but also of the context of them showing it. I mean, for all we know, the whole presentation they probably could have reaffirmed like 50 times, okay, this is just a piece of an episode. This is not the finale or something like that. This is just a piece. And they probably didn't even say where exactly it was. And then they showed it. And it's like, oh, crap, fandom hype. And then because of that, my stance on this episode is I'm pretty in the middle. I definitely agree with Jensen that the well, seriously, I did read the synopsis, and of course, and I told him, I said I was immediately bummed when I found out that this was just going to be a half-hour episode. But from Jansen's perspective, it is, yes, it's a build-up, or if you're a wrestling fan, it's some ring psychology. But yeah, it's definitely some build-up for what's going to happen, because you have to look at the context of the episode too. She pulls up some straight black magic ritual crap, and this is just for the funny slice of life episode. Whatever her real plan is, that subconsciously that ups the stakes right there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then I agree with I kind of agree with the I like John's comparison to the Equestria Games episode. The only way I would kind of differentiate a bit is because the Equestria Games, that was built up. Chrysalis just came out of nowhere. I mean, you could argue that maybe subtly the last 2.5 seasons they've been building up Chrysalis's comeback, but that's kind of, your mileage may vary on that one. I thought the episode, you could probably say, I guess I walked into the episode with low expectations, but I did walk out of the episode nonetheless enjoying it quite well for more than I thought I would. It's good slice of life. It's good build up for Chrysalis. I didn't think it was like I don't think it was the best episode of the first half, but it's definitely like, I was about to say top 10, but it's top 13. It's definitely top like 7, I would say, for me. Characters were good. Voice acting was great. Chrysalis we saw like a complete other side of Chrysalis that we haven't seen before. So it also opens her character up as well. So there's a lot of nice little things this episode did very, very well. I don't find myself particularly loving it or disliking it. I can say it's a good episode though. It just, from how I felt going into it and then how I felt coming out, they're still like way different than I thought I'd be, Right, and I've seen the episode, of course, but I'm still trying to like, okay, this isn't like Last Jedi where I legit can't make up my mind. This one, I'm still kind of like on the fence of like, well, I really did like it, but it's whatever. It's good though. It's good, but
Eddie, have you watched the episode more than once or just once?
I just watched it. I usually watch the episodes just the one time.
I would highly recommend watching it again, because I watched the episode when it came out. Not the exact day it came out, but I saw it Sunday. I saw the episode when it first came out, and then I watched it again just right before we did this, right before we got online and started talking, just kind of to have it fresh in my mind. And I found that I enjoyed it a lot more the second time around when I didn't have those expectations. Because even though I had no expectations going into the episode and was completely, not entirely, but mostly surprised by the presence of Chrysalis, I was still like, okay, this looks like it's just going to be a sort of slice of life episode, and that ended up being what happened. So to some extent, I did still kind of experience some of that. Okay, I wish this was something bigger, but I understand, blah blah blah. It's the half-season finale; they're not going to have some gigantic battle right in the middle of the season. Yeah. But watching it again with the knowledge and expectation of it basically being a slice of life episode plus supervillain, I was very, very entertained by it, and it allowed me to sort of appreciate the little things that were in the episode. I mean, we did have the small bits of foreshadowing about Chrysalis simply trying having this black magic ability. Of course, we saw the main 6 melt at the end, which was kind of cool to see that the show kind of, isn't afraid of having some slightly more dark concepts, and even that they're allowed to use more dark visual elements. I thought it was really, really amusing as a Chrysalis episode to see her hatch this evil plan and see it completely not go her way. I thought that was very, very amusing.
That was that string of words right there is also really cool and interesting, because you said Chrysalis episode. They've never done this with another villain before, where they give them their own episode. I mean, not Nightmare. I mean, you could argue those little teeny tiny bits of Starlight Glimmer's villain arc finale, where it's like, oh, the timeline ruled by Nightmare Moon, the timeline. But no, Nightmare Moon never got her own episode. Sombra never got her own episode. Discord, you could argue Keep Calm and Flutter On was Discord's own episode.
But it's different. This is the first time we've actually had a villain who
she's like evil at the beginning, she's evil at the end, and it's Actually, I would say that actually is an interesting point. I would say that this is a far more satisfying episode than Keep Calm and Flutter On. If we're talking about solo villain episodes, keep in mind they both tried to accomplish extremely different things, but this feels like it's at the right spot for a half-season finale, whereas Discord's thing felt like it should have been its own finale. Know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, and and I think it definitely does a good job at that. Seeing, and like I said, seeing the sort of anticlimax of her hatching this plan, and oh my god, she's got her own version of the main six. Turns out they're all just, I mean, no surprise, none of them can work together. And on that note, one thing I think is also worth appreciating, as long as we're kind of talking about the episode outside of the meta, or not outside the meta, but rather just as the episode as it is. I thought all the voice acting was really great. I thought, in particular, when I was rewatching it, I found Tabitha and Tara both really shined, because Tabitha, of course, was doing her like crazy Rarity voice, and these like growl sounds that she made were really, really hilarious.
Tabitha has always been really good.
Oh, she's the best.
With each season, she got more and more comfortable in the role. And oh my god, because I know what she looks like too, because I've seen pictures of her. So I'm imagining, and then that helps me because I know what her, Andrea Limon, Ashley Ball, and Tara Strong's like. So sometimes with voice actors I really like, I can imagine them in the studio. And dude, I'm just imagining that nice older gal just in the room, in the booth with the other actors. And everyone's losing their mind trying to stifle their laughter. It's really good. Tara Strong does not usually put in bad performances, but because she has to record in LA while everyone records in Vancouver, and because she has so many other roles, I feel like sometimes it is entirely possible for her to phone in her performances. But this episode especially is good. I feel like this whole season Tara has been really, really good, especially with the whole new principal things that have been stacked on the Twilight's characters. So really this episode is kind of just a nice amalgamation of all of the really good aspects of this season. And then you throw in Chrysalis. Actually, John, what are you talking about? This is a pretty good episode.
Well, I mean, one thing I want to
brought him over to my way of thinking. It only took, how long have we been doing this? 15 minutes or something like that?
15 minutes, yeah. Well, you know, and trust me, I'm not like an easy person to sway, but I'm open to. I didn't really come in here like picking on either side, but I feel like the episode, while again not great, has done a pretty good job of. It's got my expectations up for the future. Know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, in that case, let me this is something that we haven't seen in a while. Let me kind of change my perspective a little bit here. It wasn't so much the Equestria Games. Eddie, do you remember way back in season 4 when Rarity Takes Manhattan comes out?
I knew you were going to bring that up.
And you were just like, this episode's awesome. Just like, because it was the kind of thing where it's a good episode, but it's not like the best thing since pony sliced bread that the entire community was touting it as.
Bro.
And
no, look, if you look at the fan base, that was a pretty divisive episode. Maybe it wasn't 50-50, but it was still fairly love it or hate it for some reason, because I thought the episode was amazing. I see where you're going in that analogy.
A lot of the positivity came right at the very beginning, right when the episode came out, and then people were able to step back and kind of do more of it. So, but it's a sort of thing like it's a good episode, but I don't think it's a fantastic episode. You know what I mean?
Bro. Well, first off, I don't know if it's fair to compare like Ray Takes Manhattan to this episode, because that was a long time ago, and also because that episode was amazing and this episode was pretty good.
Before we move on entirely from the topic of the voice acting, because there was the other thing I wanted to mention.
Oh yeah, please.
I think Tabitha was fantastic, and the thing that I for some reason didn't notice it as much the first time I was watching it, but I think Tara was in amazing form in her evil Twilight voice.
Oh my god, yes.
It almost to me had like an air of like Raven a little bit, with just kind of the way it was a little bit more sort of like croaky and gravelly. Not very much, but you could see the skill of the other roles that she has played really coming through in that one, because it was still very much Twilight, but it's like, this is like, put it this way, it's almost like alternate timeline where Twilight is evil Twilight. Like that's almost exactly what it is. And I think especially hearing her kind of like talking about her plan and everything like that was really cool because it still sounded like Twilight's voice, but a completely different personality. And I mean,
Yeah.
This is the Tara that we've been seeing for years. We know that she's a skilled voice actress, but it's always just really cool to see her get to do something a little bit new, a little bit different. Like we were just saying a second ago about this season and how she's been in really great form this entire time with kind of really at this point coming into her own as a princess and starting her own initiatives and things like that. And now seeing this, which is not her starting her own initiatives, this is basically a different character, or rather the same character but in a different timeline, and that was really, really cool to see. That was a smaller detail from the episode, which again I didn't really catch as much the first time because I was distracted, but then rewatching it I was like, hey, this is great. This is really, really entertaining.
You want to talk about great voice acting? I from day one I've loved Starlight Glimmer's voice acting.
Oh, absolutely.
This was another I always bring up that Songo from Inuyasha, because I love Inuyasha, and that legit is Songo. But yeah, no, this is another episode where we get Starlight Glimmer specifically really shine in this episode because a thing oh my god, I want
continue. Go ahead.
Continue. Yeah, no. So they talking about the slice of life thing with the kind of combo with the voice acting. One complaint I see from people is that Starlight Glimmer doesn't really interact that much with the main six, which, yeah, sure, but I feel like she's more Twilight's friend than theirs. In this episode, I really liked I really liked her interactions with them, especially like hers with like Rarity and Applejack and stuff. I thought that those were I thought that it was really. This episode really, to me, made it feel like she's part of the group now.
Yeah.
You know, it's. I mean, they're not the main seven, but it's kind of like you remember that show Friends, where everyone always, where I think in the show and outside the show, they always joke that Gunther, the guy that ran the cafe, was like the seventh friend, kind of like how Brian Esping was the fifth Beatle. It's that type of thing where it's like you're part of the group. It's like you're not part of the group, but you're part of the circle. You know, like you're not like
it's
you're
like
she's not an outsider looking in.
Right, exactly. Yeah. She's not around all the time, but whenever she is in the episode, she's very included, and she feels present. She doesn't feel like she's just tacked on. So again, it's like she's not around a whole lot. Like she gets maybe 1 out of every 4 or 5 episodes, which is still pretty good for a main 6 character. But whenever she is around, she does feel like she's integrated very well into the whole thing. And I think this episode, what you're getting at is that this episode definitely feels like it reinforces that when she is around, she melds very well with the rest of the main 6. And after a couple of seasons of this, they've really established this nice rhythm of having her with them. And it's always whenever that happens, it's always really nice to see that. I do wish we got more of that. I really hope that that's what we get in the finale, because as it is, we see the main 7 more or less dealing with Chrysalis in this very inadvertent way. So I would love to see in the finale that it's okay. Now we really have the main 7 all dealing with a threat together. I think it would be really cool. I mean, because we saw that in season 7 finale, and it was awesome.
They need to
really hope that we get more of that.
They need to do like a Crisis on Infinite Earths type of thing, where the main 7 there are doing something, and then the main 7 in the Equestrial Girls world are doing something, and then they're fighting the villains sort of at the same time, and they're like cross blending the different planes of reality or something like that. That's the end game. That's the end game right there. We're talking like Barry Allen or Wally West breaking the speed of sound barrier or whatever. Superman or Superboy Prime punches through reality, you know, and then Starlight Glimmer just shoots the main bad guy in the face, and then they like do this cool melding of the universe things. I read too many comic books, but yes. So to get like through points of the episode, the opening of the episode, which I thought was actually pretty clever. Of considering what the animatic they showed, was the opening of the episode, which was great because I thought, okay, they're wasting no time. Boom, Chrysalis does the ritual. They do the opening credits. My Little Pony. The new intro is sick.
Oh, it's
awesome. Much better than what they've had previously.
And then she let.
This is the first. Sorry to interrupt, but just really quick
before
we completely move on from that. This is the first time that we've had like a major change to the episode intro since the show began. You know, we've had those minor changes of characters being added in, but this is the first major change. I've watched the season intro for every single episode that we've had in this season so far because I just can't get enough of that intro. But anyway.
Oh, it's great. No, it's great.
And I
they
mean,
got
it's
the
no longer a
school, they
copy-paste.
got the students.
Yeah, they got
everything.
They have everything.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But anyway, without again, so
no, you're fine. Yeah, no, so. Now, did you ever watch our videos? I sidetrack John all the time.
Now, let me just say this.
Yeah.
You know, kind of going with the voice acting again, you know, with the ritual part of this before the Mean Six actually come out. When Chrysalis is talking and kind of prancing to each of the...
Oh, it's great.
Which is
so
super
great.
adorable. But here's what's even better. She's also the voice actress for Trixie. I can hear Trixie coming out of her.
Absolutely. I absolutely thought that. Well, that was
what's that lady's name? Kathleen. Somebody's name Kathleen Barr, I think. She's been a voice acting regular in cartoons forever. She's awesome.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, but that was what was kind of cool about it, because when you saw Chrysalis as the photographer pony, I can't remember if she was given a name, but when she's kind of like looking at the photos and she's like, "Now I have all I need," I'm like, I
call her
recognize.
photorealistic.
I'm like, I recognize that voice, not as Chrysalis, but as Trixie, and I'm like, I know who this is. Yes, here we go, Chrysalis. Yes, it was good.
I gotta admit, I had to actually read because I rewind parts I find interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had to rewatch that scene. Like, we're talking 4 times because because the first 2 times I was like, oh man, I haven't seen this side of Chrysalis before. I don't know if I like this. And then the 3rd or 4th time was like, okay, I actually really dig this. This seems in line with her because she's that type of, like, I don't know if Blood Knight's the right term, but she's that that like Cerberus, like, sort of more serious, like dangerous villain and stuff. Not like Sombra, who I'm sure has probably eaten somebody before, but much like legit planning revenge, wants to fight, wants to take stuff back and stuff. So in that sense, you know, and looking at her other characterizations and how laugh crazy she was in her premiere and stuff, I found that the sides of Chrysalis's personality that were shown were actually not like unrealistic. I don't want to say unrealistic, but like they fit in. I'm saying they really fit.
Yeah, they feel into it.
I'm glad I rewatched that a couple times. Otherwise, I don't feel like the episode would have gone as smooth. But yeah, she's prancing around and monologuing to herself, talking to herself, which of course villains do in cartoons. But
that's what I love about. By the way, that's what I love about the villains.
Speaking of, it's this is they're very big with Incredibles 2 being in theaters, but it's like when Syndrome catches Mr. Incredible, it's like, you caught me monologuing.
No, I love that. I love seeing Chrysalis. I love how the My Little Pony villains, especially Chrysalis or like Nightmare Moon, just own the fact that they've got this like campy evil laugh. Like she's monologuing to herself in a forest, and I'm like, you know what? This is great.
This is great. This is cartoons right here, and
exactly. Like, awesome. This is completely self-aware, like retro cheesy supervillains, and I love it.
That's what I was telling you, John, when we were talking about like Slice of Life a while ago, where it's like the show's always self-aware and always been meta, but there are sometimes with that, and I forget the name of the episode, but the M.A. Larson one, the one with the song "Work in Progress."
Oh, actually, that's Fame and Misfortune.
Yeah, Fame and Misfortune. I'm sorry, that's the episode I was thinking of, where we were talking about how the show's always been self-aware and stuff like that, but sometimes it can be just a bit of of a deliberate take. That kind of like a lot of people had that reaction to the Seabreeze episode, and I'm always the kind of person where it's like, well, if it affects you that hard, that means it's a powerful piece of media. Mm-hmm. But sometimes, you know, they actually take pot shots at people. But they're always really really the only self-aware villain villain they have that hasn't been self-aware is Sombra, and that's just because all he said was crystals. Crystal slaves, which I'm telling you, man, he could have been the darkest villain the show had, but they killed him off. Anyway, off track.
We should have a discussion about Sombra, because I know that's a very like fandom disruptive villain. I like him.
I love
that's a whole long discussion that'll take up like another review. So we should do a
villain special.
I was gonna say like a retroactive, like, hey, let's go back and review, you know, the season 3 premiere, not as like this is the first time we're seeing it, obviously, but hey, let's go back and appreciate / talk about that.
Let's appreciate that time. Let's appreciate that time that for like the second time in probably Western history of a guy throwing his wife. You know, the Incredible.
Always. Never forget.
Yeah, never forget Kate. You know, you hear that like that should have been like a perk you could unlock in Call of Duty. Like you can do the dogs, you can do the helicopter, but then someone just goes like tactical nuke incoming, but it's just Chrysalis, and then but she just launches like a bunch of hearts from her horns that just blow up everything.
If anyone in the audience has ever played Titanfall 2,
Buried Alive by Love,
stole the pilot launch from the season 3 premiere of My Little Pony. Totally true. Look it up. It's definitely happened.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time. So they so yeah, Chrysalis being completely nutso. That makes sense. It's funny. People always bring up the Maleficent comparison with her because of her transformation scene, and honestly, throughout the episode, I'm like, yeah, this is actually kind of like Maleficent, the Angelina Jolie movie, maybe. But you know, it's it'll never be as good as the Disney classic, but it's still kind of cool. And like Jessica said, man, the main six were just. They were really cool. They were really fun. Kind of wish they'd stuck around longer, but whatever. But the main six, that's the interesting thing. This episode was simultaneously juggling a lot of characters, but they also weren't because they were juggling 14 characters, but 6 of them are just reskinned versions of the same characters. So they were really only juggling like 8.
I think they handled that juggling really well. Like every single character kind of had their own little arc, and it all the whole pacing of the episode was. I think that was another thing I was going to mention watching it the second time. I think the pacing of it in general was great. Like by the time that they finished up all the little character arcs, and then we had that sort of like almost like 2-3 minute like almost like epilogue to the whole episode where you see the music get melted, etc. I think by the time that you reach that, it's like okay, we've kind of gotten to the end of this whole like arc of being like in the forest. And before you can get tired of that or feel like it's being dragged out, we've moved on. And that was nice. It's like by the time that you got like genuinely annoyed with any of the main six, or like by the time that anything felt like a drag, you were moving on to the next character. And I think it's something pacing wise too that dealt with those like whole character arcs, which again I only noticed on the second watch through, is that the tension between the main six, which is of course compounded by the mean six coming around, started even before the mean six got involved because Twilight was trying to keep everybody moving and the others were like dragging their feet. Actually. And I was like, oh, interesting. That little bit of tension, just a little bit, started before the Mean Six even came in. So it makes sense that the Mean Six would then trigger all of that and create this larger rift. But then it's equally as cool to see how, even though them arguing with each other was, of course, actually the Mean Six, so they weren't actually arguing with each other, they still just were like, everybody calm down, we're cool, we're friends, we know that we annoy each other, but that's okay. So I thought that was really, really cool to see that despite all of this, they like the actual like character progression. It's kind of funny. It's the exact opposite of the episode that we had that, again, this is getting into a whole nother topic, but with the episode where we had Applejack and Rainbow Dash competing as teachers, which I thought was completely retconning all of the character progression. I absolutely hated that episode.
Fall for the Friends 2K18, boys!
But see, this is the polar opposite. This is showing we've had these 8 seasons of character progression. By this point, they can annoy each other, but be like, hey, you know what? It's okay. We can take the good with the bad, and we'll make the best of it. We're all friends here.
Well, you know,
so I like that. I like that a lot.
It's like DW. It's like John and mine's Lord and Savior DWK once said. Friendship isn't about how much you get along with someone or agree with them. It's about how much they can piss you, how much you or they can piss you or each other off, but how willing you are to still associate with them and work through the issues and remain in contact with each other.
That's what I thought apple pie was.
Yeah, that's gotta be one of the most poignant things I've ever heard. Like, no joke. And like, I've actually I take that with me when I see episodes like this. So, because you know, some people can be super critical if they're like, oh, I mean, look, oh god, I said Apple Dash, kill me. No, so the Applejack Rainbow Dash episode, Flutter Dash still alive, 2K18, by the way. That actually, I agree with you. That felt like, I don't know about retcon, but that did definitely feel like it was rehashing and undoing some actual pieces. This, on the other hand, it's like, it actually felt like, oh, okay, so, you know, like any real friend, sometimes there's bumps and hurdles. That doesn't mean that all the character development is undone.
Right,
it just means people have the hiccups now. These pranks later, which was just a rehash of Mysterious Ne'er-do-well, but with zombies. No, I definitely agree with you that this episode did those better.
Yeah.
So one thing I love the idea that idea that they were just going camping because that spontaneously like to go and camp. I mean, we're not talking like they'll just go any random place. They'll go to like the designated camp areas. But Starlight Glimmer reminded me of me and my buddy Thomas, because we like camping, so we're not like Starlight, but at the same time we're just like, oh God, I hate walking through the woods and like dealing with all this crap and stuff. And I'm the big guy, so I have to carry everyone's crap whenever I go. So like it's funny. That I thought that was really funny.
I thought that was some classic My Little Pony like visual comedy too, of just having Starlight, sacrilege. Having Starlight get just like loaded with all this stuff. I just thought that was so. It doesn't make any sense that Applejack would just like give her this stuff halfway through the trip, and then she doesn't just carry it with her. What we've seen to be her incredibly powerful magic. Like, it doesn't make. If you really look into like Starlight's character, it doesn't make any sense that she would just carry this stuff. But it's funny, and that's what mattered. And it's like, this is just some classic My Little Pony. Like, oh, that's kind of funny. Starlight's like hobbling and tripping over stuff. I'm like, it was funny.
Now, something that I want to kind of bring up, because we haven't really talked about this yet, but with the Mean Six, do you realize that they kind of had similar personalities to when they were discorded?
That's exactly what
I honestly thought, I'm not going to lie to you, I honestly thought that somehow some are the same characters, even though in every possible way they could not have been those characters, but they felt exactly the same to me, but they had more screen time.
Yeah, and they did feel like we were talking about with Tabitha being able to kind of do that more growly sort of thing. It made it different enough to where I was appreciating it. And like looking at the fact of like Pinkie Pie wasn't completely like she was in season 2. She's more bored than she is like, I hate this.
Yeah, there were some differences.
But like Applejack constantly lying and failing was some of the funniest things here.
Oh,
that was always
like, there's a party up in that there tree. You can't get in without the passcode to get past the squirrel, though. And then she goes, "It's like
his name is Jerome."
The secret password.
Whenever shows or something do the whole the honest person lies thing, that it's kind of it's one of those things where it's not the easiest to make me laugh, because it's not that it's overly dumb, but it's really easy to have it be kind of boring.
Right.
And whenever they do, and it doesn't click every time with Applejack when they do that with Applejack with me. But at the same exact time, oh my gosh, some of that stuff she was saying
was hilarious. Every time she talked, I was like, please just keep talking. Like, just keep going.
Yeah. I was like, dude, just be like how Big Mac used to be. Don't shut up.
And then like you were looking at Chrysalis herself in relation to the Mean Six. She almost felt like a mother having to deal with her 6 unruly, bratty children.
No, I love that.
I saw that comparison on TV Tropes, and I thought it was the most accurate thing I'd seen all day.
She's constantly just like, "Oh my God, will you guys just shut up?"
No, I know. I love that. I loved seeing Chrysalis try to hatch this plan, and it just does not go. It goes like bad in the sense of they were actually going to try to overthrow her. But even aside from that, just from a comedic standpoint, it's hilarious to just see them all just completely get away from her. And she's like, "Yes, my minions," and then they just like a bunch of children just all run in different directions, and she's like, "What the hell?" It was so funny to see it.
I could totally just imagine just being like, "Ay, these niños," and it was just great.
Yeah, there was, and one of the other things that I really noticed was if there was some minor visual cues on whether it was a Mean Six form or Main Six, with like, especially with Applejack, she had green apples on her flank instead of the red apples, or having little slight discolorations and stuff like that. But what I love is the interactions between the Main Six and the Mean Six, and how they kind of never. It's always reminding me of those old like Hanna-Barbera cartoons where they're constantly flipping past each other, not being able to see the other person, and like just missing each other. But in this way, it's just missing each other with the intent of you have bad guy missing with good guy, and so that's where the confusion comes from.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, it was just so good to kind of see, like, you look at like right after the bird fell out of the nest, and she, like, Fluttershy gets the first one up there, and then the bad Fluttershy is like screaming like a drill sergeant at this bird trying to climb the tree again, and it gets all the animals pissed off at her. It's like, I hope you die in the winter. And then actual Fluttershy comes back, and she's like, "Why are you guys mad at me?"
Oh, it's hilarious. It's like getting whiplash. Like the birds are like getting whiplash here. Like,
Yep.
that was very funny. There was just, I think, with the dynamic between the mean six versus the regular main six, like there's just so much comedic potential there, and I think we absolutely saw that in this episode. Obviously, they're not going to come back again, but I think, like, for this episode that we got them, that was really funny to see that, like, in between, especially with Fluttershy, and seeing that back and forth, and seeing like Twilight, like, in the swamp, and she's like talking to Pinky, and she's like, "What?" And then sees Rainbow go past and is like, "Oh my God, Pinky's upset." And Rainbow's like, "Whatever," and she's just like, just falls in the water, like, what's going on? And of course, shouts out to Fluttershy for just being like, "Why can't we just all get along?" Just made me laugh so much every time. I'm like, oh my God, my heart. It's just so funny.
I know. One of the things I think MLP's always done best is like the little visual gags or the background or the funny little background events. And this episode, like you said, was just full of them. Whole episode, like every other 20 seconds, I'm just like, oh my God. Or I'm like, oh my God. Like, what is, oh my God. That was me half this episode in my mind. And I'm just like, you know what, MLP, 8 years strong, and you still got it, baby.
Well, so one last thing I'll mention, because I feel like we're kind of reaching the end of the content of this review here. But so you mentioned background, so just on a slightly different note, but just because you reminded me of it, the smaller, like, closing note of the episode. When you watch it, pay attention to the backgrounds. The backgrounds were beautiful in this episode. Like the forest and just the artwork. There's that particular shot toward the end where you see Applejack. I believe it's Applejack, Rarity, and Starlight, I think, walking down, and this, like, sunset, and you see the sun through the trees. Just in general, My Little Pony's backgrounds have always been really beautiful. They're this, like, minimalistic design that also manages to just have an immense amount of character. I think that was in beautiful form in this episode. And I never noticed it at first, but if you pay special attention to the backgrounds in this episode, they were particularly beautiful, and I loved it.
I tell John all the time, it's hard to go back and watch some of the old episodes sometimes, not because of, like, you know, the different quality or writing style. No, it's just because in season 1 and 2, everything just looks so flat.
Yeah.
No, there was definitely some progression there, and then,
which is weird because I remember when everyone was just getting into the show, everyone's like, "Oh wow, the animation's really good. All these different cinematography things and stuff." People always like to point out that one camera pan from Putting Your Hoof Down specifically, where Fluttershy ties herself to the chair and then it does the little movement thing.
Yeah.
And I remember watching at the time, like, wow. And you watch the show and you naturally see it progress and get better and better and better. The facial animation, background animation, the model riggings and all that. But then you go back and watch it. It's kind of like when you watch Naruto and you see him develop from the original series through Shippuden and then to the new series now. You feel like, oh man, he's kind of always been the same character, I guess. But then you go back and watch old Naruto, and it's like, oh man, he was a real piece of crap back then, type of deal. It's the same way. It's like, wow, season 1 is still good objectively.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That is still good animation. But looking at animation from a regular episode now to a regular episode back then, it's just like, wow, oh my God.
Yeah, there's a huge difference. Yeah, it's quite an interesting dichotomy to see.
I'm like the animation we see now, that's like the animation I thought I was seeing way back when.
Yeah.
That was one of the selling points. But
another perspective shift.
Yeah.
Which is just cool to see that even back then it held up, and nowadays it's like, wow, it's just gotten even better. It's always kind of nice to see.
And one thing you were mentioning with looking in the backgrounds and everything, kind of reminds me of back when Eddie and I were reviewing and mending fences, and I just had to point out how their manes bounce. Like it just looked like, and the way that Lemon Hearts and Twinkle Shine looked almost exactly the same with the mane and everything like that, but it was subtly different so that you knew they were different characters outside of color scheme. Yeah. So it was just, it's that sort of little thing that really gets me just excited about this show, because they constantly up each other every single time.
Oh, that's great. If y'all had to give the episode a rating, And I know it's like
Oh,
I know it's like we had this long, complex discussion about the highs and lows. We don't even need a rating, but boys, this is the internet. So if you had to take all the thoughts that we just put out and all the pros and cons we weighed and all the points of views that we pointed out, and you had to condense all of that into a number, what would it be? I would give this
1 and 10.
yeah, 1 in 10. I give this like an 8.75. Jensen, I tend to be I've never given anything in the show below a 5 just because like it's gotta really suck for me, and maybe I just have high standards for the show or low standards, I don't know.
Right.
But like it's
Eddie,
I tend to be
I think the worst you ever put was like a 5.5 for like Three's a Crowd, I think it was.
it was either Three's a Crowd or that atrocious go-kart episode.
Yeah.
Oh.
You want to talk about a show that undid
No, I don't want to talk
character
about that.
development.
No, absolutely
About
not.
an episode that undid character development.
Yeah.
Boy.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, no, I give this one an 8.75. No, dude. Oh God, I'm so mad at that episode.
Moving on. John, go ahead.
Yeah,
Okay.
8.75.
I give this a 7.5. I mean, it was still a very interesting episode. You know, the character interactions are really good. And again, you know, I'm, you know, kind of how we were talking about this. I'm liking the episode a lot more now that we've talked about it and kind of gotten different perspectives and everything, as it is tending to do with a lot of these. But I think it was a solid episode, just not like a stellar episode in my eyes.
Personally, and this is probably reflective of the way that I've been talking about the entire time, but I honestly am going to give it a 10 out of 10, like it's just a perfect score, because I think it objectively it did everything it was intending to do. You know, it's this mid-season finale. It's this deliberate sort of anticlimax that it's like, okay, oh, you know, Chrysalis is coming back, but as it turns out, this is just a big mishap. But in that sense of doing that and being self-aware and trying to be, okay, we're just going to tease you for the finale. We're going to have this build up and show these little bits of character development on Chrysalis' part, character development on the main six's part. Well, not even character development, but just showing how their characters have developed.
It was showing
entertaining
development. Yeah.
Exactly. And then having a little bit of that sort of action in the beginning with the black magic, and then at the end with them like melting, and then the sort of teasing it. I honestly think everything that this episode set out to do, it did perfectly. And I think that everything the episode did set out to do was very well intentioned. So I honestly think I have an extremely hard time finding anything wrong with the episode that is not meta. As I said, if you look at it from the perspective of a brony who looks up the synopses, you might have been misled a little bit. I am, of course, a brony naturally, but I'm not I'm not looking super far ahead into the show's synopses. So coming at it from the perspective of someone who is a fan of the show, but who did not have any expectations going in, I honestly can't find many flaws with the episode. Do I wish that we had maybe gotten a larger like battle royale? Perhaps, but I don't think that the episode should be judged on that, because again, that's getting into this sort of meta discussion. So as far as did the episode do exactly what it intended to do, and did I enjoy that? Yes. So I'm gonna say perfect score, because I honestly don't find any flaws in the intent of the episode and the way that it executed that intent.
Yeah, okay, and that's pretty good. That's pretty good logic. Whenever you and me give something a 10, we always compare it to other 10 out of 10 episodes.
And see, that's not a bad thing, because you can definitely, there is certainly, I think, still a discussion to be had about the meta of the show. But yeah, I personally, I like to review the show from that objective point of view. That's just me. Not that I disagree or don't like those sorts of conversations, but I think for this sort of thing. Yeah,
because I think of every 10 out of 10 I've given to this episode, to this show, and the two most prominent examples are Tanks for the Memories and Perfect Pair, which are both really good in their own right. But like, and now I'm thinking like, man, what is my criteria for a 10 out of 10 episode? Do I just have to like, I don't know. I was going to point this out earlier. What you were saying about character development stuff, you have to figure we're dealing with a fan base that, even though we're in our you know, staring out at the sunset type of age, we're still at a point to where, you know, there's still plenty of people that are like, oh, if the main six don't get along perfectly, then it's ruining character development. But if they don't have any flaws, then it's dumb. And you know, Rainbow, and hell, I'm guilty of this, you know, where I'm like, oh, Rainbow Dash needs to be cocky, but not too cocky. Fluttershy needs to be nice, but not too nice. This and that. I'm with you. I definitely try to look at things by an episode basis. Even though the show
unless
is
something really egregious happens, like the go-kart episode.
On that note,
on that note, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you like our videos, make sure to follow us on Instagram. Make sure to ring that bell. If you're not getting notifications, it's probably because you're subscribed to 500 fucking channels.
Tag us on Twitter.
Together and just unsubscribe from all of those and watch our videos exclusively.
Exactly. Tag us on Twitter. If you see us at a con, take a picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely come up to us and just kind of harass us. My channel.
We love the attention. We love to gloat.
And then on a slightly more serious note, if you like electronic dance music that's pretty chill and has some emotion behind it, feel free to check out my YouTube channel at youtube.com/Statoose. That's STACOOSE.
Yes, and I will put that in the description as well.
Of course. Well, thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it.
I every once in a while put out me rambling on about music, and I'm putting out Crash Bandicoot and God of War Let's Plays at the moment. So
doing the Lord's work.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, Daddy Kratos. Boy. Okay, so yeah.
Boy.
And that's John. He so yeah, we'll see y'all around.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Peace out, Dragon.
Adios.